Hello. I don't hear it.
I am going to.
What's up? Oh, there it is.
Are you there?
Hello.
You tell me. Does that sound good? Too loud?
Yeah, that's good.
That sounds good.
You're good. You're good. I'm good. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh, by the way, AJ, you didn't happen to see my little red hex wrench?
It was in your bag.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Thanks, buddy. I was freaking out. Do you know that tool set, that one that I have?
It was in your bag.
The rainbow. But are you aware of it, like that brand?
Mm-mm.
It's like people lust over it, and I finally got one. And it's just a hex key set. I think it's like German or some shit. It's super nice quality, and like, I don't know. I love it.
Yeah,
Is it
it's
a
German.
Weeha or what do you got?
Let me see what brand it is.
You know Danny and his stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just at that point where I just want like nice shit. Like it's not like crazy expensive, but I don't even have like a ton of tools. Although I'm getting more. And Sarah's like, "Are you gonna organize your tools?"
What are you going to do with all this stuff?
I know. It's like, what am I doing? I have no idea.
I was Danny's assistant today, carrying
Yeah.
all the stuff around, pinning his number.
It's very pro.
Yeah, we had fun.
I wasn't his domestique though. I told him he needs to get a couple domestiques.
Yeah, because like Cat 3s and 4s, they got strategy now. They got teams. It's like Ineos out on the road, like battling Jumbo Visma or Jumbo Lisa bike.
Oh, if you got Netflix these days, you can learn how to be a bike racer.
Totally.
Basically.
Or YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube, There's all that information. I had to fly to Europe and, I had to fly to Spain to learn some of that stuff. And now anybody with a internet connection can learn how to do that stuff. Yeah.
I still have not used Strava.
No?
Strava's great.
No.
I love Strava.
I mean, I don't have any thing against it. I just haven't used it.
Yeah. Well,
But I did a few weeks ago do this ride in Chicago. It was based on Strava art. You guys know about this?
yeah.
But it was a route in Chicago in the shape of the outline of the state of Illinois.
Oh, okay.
And then I wrote about it for Streets Blog.
That's
But
right.
it was cool. It was a fun ride.
Kenny LeBay was like Instagramming that too.
He was the guy who kind of led the ride.
Yep.
Oh, he led that. Oh, so it was a ride. It was actually.
Yeah, there's probably
a
like
ride.
50 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kenny was awesome. He was really, really nice.
He's great. I was just hanging with him at the Autobahn races I did recently, but he's amazing. He does like a lot of the commentary. I don't know if you knew, but he calls all the
yeah,
races.
so he was saying for the cyclocross cup, right?
And he's doing like a lot of road and crits too. He actually worked with Joe when Joe had his bike race at Soldier Field.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I got pictures.
He called and volunteered himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. He was really nice.
Do you know his history a little bit?
No.
So he works at U.S. Postal.
Okay.
I believe he is like their union rep, if I'm not mistaken, but he actually works in the actual post office.
He's a
yeah.
As opposed to like a letter
Oh,
carrier.
okay.
As opposed to
Yeah.
a letter carrier,
Yeah.
I believe. He works with my friend Tom, and Kenny LeBay was a pro, a domestic pro, and he raced on U.S. Postal.
No.
So he was
way.
actually like
Really?
pro on U.S. Postal, and he actually worked for U.S. Post Office.
Huh.
So anyway, he's got like a really interesting history.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
he's great.
I had no idea because I talked to him for probably 45 minutes for that story, and I guess we didn't get into all that, but we talked about just like these, I guess you could say, like unaffiliated rides, because that map, the Illinois map ride, it was not a racing. It wasn't like a, what do you call it?
Sanctioned. Like a,
Yeah, well, it wasn't like
like a USA Cycling. Like it wasn't a competitive.
Yeah, you didn't
No.
sign up for it or anything.
No,
You
but it
just
wasn't.
showed
It
up.
wasn't like some team ride or some kind of like pace line. It was just regular people showing up.
Kind of like a
It's just very, very just
critical mass in a way,
almost
but
like
like
critical
less rowdy.
very, very loose, kind of unaffiliated to anything. But it was good to have Kenny and a couple other people sort of like help
directing a little
direct
bit,
it,
yeah.
and especially when we're getting through, going through intersections where you kind of need someone to help bring the group back together and block off traffic.
Heard everyone.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that was fun.
Yeah, I was going to do that, and I had, I think I had those. I went out and raced at the Autobahn Country Club in Joliet, as you do. But I was otherwise I was 100% going to do that. I was like, it kept popping up on my Instagram, and I'm like, oh, I really want to do this, but
Yeah, that was one of those kind of really nice weather days too.
mm-hmm.
Really, really nice weather days.
No, I didn't realize that was like a there's more than one person. I thought it was something that he did.
Well, so the story was that he had posted something in like a private Facebook group for the cyclocross community and scene in Chicago, and was just like, he found some Strava art of the outline of the country of France, but in Paris. And he said, I'll give $5 to whoever does this, but the state of Illinois and Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And then a couple of people, I guess like pretty quickly within a day or two, put together a map, and then he paid them $5.
Oh, very cool.
And we got a whole group together, and it was cool.
And you wrote about that in Streets blog?
Yeah, I was going to pull that up real quick.
Streets blog.
By the way, great to have AJ back on the podcast and back IRL recording in our kitchen. Welcome to Joe back to the North Side.
Yeah. We're recording, by the way. So
okay.
It's been a while.
I just turn it on, and
we
just start going. Why waste all of this good banter?
The first couple podcasts, I'm like, shit, I didn't know you were recording. So I learned quickly, Joe, you got to be careful. He's got it going.
Well, it's all for the show, right?
All 100%. For the show.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Yeah. So here's like the outline of
it was very cool.
The map.
Well, that is a good outline of the map. Well, so you made it all the way down to the south side. You dipped into South Lawndale.
Yep. So that was the cool thing about the ride, was that it was like, I think the idea was just, it was kind of, I guess like an inside joke initially, but it ended up being, actually really cool in the sense where like we're doing this ride through Chicago, but it feels very much like Illinois. You're going through the old industrial corridors there on the west side. You're going through a lot of different communities. You're seeing all the churches and cathedrals, and it just felt like very much like,
so it was somewhat scenic,
the essence of Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, those neighborhoods, looking at the map, that would take you right through that heart of.
Yeah. And the nice thing too is the drivers were very, very well behaved. Very
really
chill.
What day of the week was that?
It was on a Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, I fully expected like yelling and honking, and the only honking was people in support, just like being happy.
Oh, very
excited.
cool.
So.
Reminds me of the naked ride. Like, motorists were generally very friendly and intrigued.
Yeah, you know what? I do. That's a ride that I love because I think the naked aspect of it eases people's tension a little bit. It's like they enjoy the inconvenience of being held up at an intersection for half an hour while a bunch of naked people go by.
Or a freak show on wheels.
Yeah, every once in a while you run into someone who's angry or in a hurry to get somewhere, but for the most part, everyone's in a good mood. It's Saturday night, so the city's just hopping, and summertime. Ride. Yeah, it's a good time. June 15th this year, by the way. So get ready.
Yeah, and I had done that I think once or twice, but years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Naked?
The naked bike ride.
But I mean, did you participate naked or?
I think I just wore like regular underwear or just like underwear. Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't fully.
But you were in underwear.
Yeah, but there were definitely like naked. Like,
oh no, there's a lot of naked
people.
Oh yeah.
I also in
guys,
college,
gals, everyone in between.
Yeah.
In college, we also did a naked L.
I'm sure you did a lot of naked.
There was a
stuff.
naked L ride.
There's a naked L ride.
There was like a naked train ride.
Wow, that's next level.
Wow, you DePaul guys, really?
Yeah. Wow. But it was a big group, but no one was actually naked. Everyone's just in their underwear.
Oh, okay.
But the interesting thing was it was like equal women and men. Because you'd think that it'd be like all dudes or something.
Well, it's college.
But for that one, it was.
Yeah, it'd be weird if it's all dudes. Then it's
yeah.
Well, that's very Paris of you. That seems like something that would happen in Berlin or Paris or somewhere cool.
Seriously.
Amsterdam. Do they have a metro in Amsterdam?
Hell yeah, they do. But good to see you again, AJ, back on the pod.
Sir.
And dude, I haven't really seen you. We haven't, we've been a little consistent, little hiatus, little breaks.
Well, you were in Europe. The last time we spoke, you were on your way to Europe, and then you were there. And
you helped me out last minute with a bike box. Thank you.
Yeah. And the bike made it there in one piece. He went. I don't know if you've heard all about it, but Danny was in Mallorca, Spain.
Oh, I heard all about it.
The home of all the German bike racers and triathletes.
Pretty much all the pasty Brits and Irish.
Yeah. It's a real central over there for,
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It's actually very, it's kind of surreal. The first 2 days, I think, it was pretty surreal because the first day we didn't ride. We got there and went up north and got
photos
got tucked in, and
the photos looked like it was like a paradise or something.
It kind of is paradise, but the sensation of seeing so many cyclists, Sarah was freaking out. She was laughing hysterically. She's like, I can't believe it. She's like, this is your jam. We turn a corner, go down this country road. There's a group of 10.
Yep.
There's another group of 10. There's a group of 20. There's a group of 3. It's kind of I don't know what to compare it to, but it felt like we were at, I've never been to Ironman, but I would imagine you take over an island, in Hawaii, and Ironman descends and there's thousands of people. Yeah. It wasn't on that level, but it was so wild because I never saw kind of so many cyclists, except for at a big race or something. But that was a normal week and a normal day.
Yeah, it's winter there,
right?
'Cause everyone. Well, it's also a little bit of preseason stuff, so you get a lot of the amateur teams that are prepping and cycling clubs from the Northern Europe and England that go there to get some early season miles. It's cheap, it's easy for them to get there. A lot of flights.
Who did you say was the king of the mountain?
Oh, Tom Pidcock. He has the KOM for Sacalabra, which is the big, crazy, snaky. Sacalabra is Latin for the snake, I guess. I got a jersey of it. It's cool. But yeah, he has the 22-minute something KOM, which is hilarious because I did it in 52 or something. And as I was 10 minutes into it, I was like, I can't believe he would be halfway done by now. I mean, I could believe it, but it's just insane until you do it. Yeah. And as I was saying to someone, it's kind of wild, the sport that way, because you can just go ride the same exact road. And to be fair, he did a massive ride that day. He had many, many climbs in his schedule. So that's just how crazy the pros are.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, super beautiful. It was really wild. So it's high season for cyclists going there. That's the peak time.
Yep.
But then for the island, in the real world, their tourism and stuff, it's clearly off season, but it's knocking on the door. And then of course, it gets so hot and then everyone descends but we kind of liked it because it was every day was almost exactly the same in a good way. It was 70, sunny. It wasn't hot, but it was warmish, and at night you bring a little jacket because it's a little cool. We're on the bay and there's the promenade and stuff, but we had a wonderful time. But the riding, it's pretty insane.
It's spectacular. Yeah. And all the cars and the people in cars are used to cyclists. So, it's pretty.
You've been, you've been out there.
In Mallorca, boy, I haven't been there in over 20 years, but the same goes in Alicante. So, in that region where my wife is from, that's another cycling hub, and actually, maybe a little, it's a bigger area. So you don't, so they're a little bit more spread out there, but there's so many more in that area that, you have the same effect. There's just Pelotons and there's, cycling clubs that will rent a couple of Airbnbs and they'll be 30 deep.
Peloton, you mean everyone's just riding virtual bikes outside?
Yep. Outside, just alongside the road. Yeah. You get the effect.
And they have the Peloton treadmills too.
My favorite thing is that people, God, I'm going to sound like such a hipster, but they don't know that Peloton is a thing. It's
right.
Of course, it's a fun name for a startup.
Well, it's funny you said that because I have a jersey from Peloton magazine. So they were really big on doing a custom jersey every year. And I did a little bit of work for them. And so Brad would send me, he'd be like, what size are you at the moment? And I'm like, XXL. But because all that Euro shit's so small. But anyway, he'd send me a jersey and, it always said Peloton in pretty nice big letters. It was always really cool design. But now I feel like I don't really want to wear it because people think it's Peloton. And they're like, Peloton douche, off the road. Go to your basement.
What are your favorite classes?
Yeah. I've never done Peloton. I have nothing against Peloton. If it gets you working out, that's great.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit reluctant to wear it. I'm because it's big red letters. It's Peloton.
It's definitely it's a luxury item for sure, though.
Well, do you remember the backlash that ad got? It went viral for a week, and that's all people were talking about. There was an ad that went viral, and it was this woman talking about her Peloton, and it was I'll find it. I'll show it to you guys. You have to see it. It went viral for being just like insanely.
So anyways, on Mallorca, you just have guys just on their Pelotons outside.
Yeah, alongside the road there. Like they'll
just spinning.
They'll line them up.
Spinning.
Yeah, get a little bit of that outdoor effect going. But no, you just have. I mean, there's a huge concentration of that in that region, and at that time of the year. Actually all winter long. So
is that like so how Spain is supposedly affordable compared to the US? Is that like a spot that's really expensive, or is that also kind of still somewhat
no, that region
reasonable?
I mean, I think it's still reasonable compared to the United States. And Mallorca is probably a little bit more expensive than the rest of Spain. So they're probably cheaper parts of Spain. But it's certainly more affordable than Chicago. And most of the United States.
There's you definitely feel like you're on an island. Like it's a good sized island. Population's I think almost like 900,000 or something. So it's a big place, but like I was able to ride from one end like diagonally to the other, and then I would meet Sarah and she'd be in the car and we would just drive home. We'd have lunch and stuff. So, but like you can easily ride across the island. It's like, a few hours, but it's I think in high season, it's definitely a pretty expensive place to visit just because it's high season and like everyone's there. But off season, it's very affordable. There's stuff still open, not as much stuff, but there was plenty open, and there was some really good restaurants, and we had fun. Our whole thing was like we wanted to really have a trip where we deeply kind of relax, and so we promised no laptops, no work, pretty much no work at all, and then we were just in this kind of somewhat remote Airbnb. We're only a few kilometers from this port, but like it when you get into like the little country roads, it's like desert like almost, and like it felt pretty remote. So that was really nice. So we just got some groceries and we were just like sleep in.
You rented a car, right?
Yeah, we rented a car.
Yeah.
So anyway, very cool place. I knocked it off my list. I definitely would like to go back.
Yeah, it's gorgeous there, and
it's really nice. And I'd like to go to Alicante.
Tenerife, the Tenerife or Tenerife.
Yeah,
another place that would be a great place to go ride bikes.
Lot of German people, probably.
A lot of Germans in Mallorca.
Or just like I know Spain's like a big spot for Germans, right? For
Germans, Brits, number one for Brits. Yeah, Brits are number one. Germans, the Dutch, a lot of Russians these days. Like Eastern Europeans. But I think English are number one,
definitely
by far,
definitely.
And I mean they own. There's a town called Benidorm, and not too far from Alicante, and like on a Saturday night, there's a whole stretch there. It's all like English pubs. English comedy clubs, and it's very blue collar. So it's just, it's a trip to go there and hang out there because it's like fights in the streets. And
I've not,
the clubs are really dirt, they're just really like, the people are having a good time because it's cheap, and they're drinking way too much. And
I've not traveled to Europe as much as you guys, but I did go to Amsterdam one time and it was full of Brits, and they were just hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, they were.
I'm glad you thought so, because not everyone thinks they're hilarious.
Well, I mean, they're obviously drunken idiots, but some of them were just like so funny.
Yeah.
They actually, it was in the news that came up in the past few months. I remember seeing headlines for it, and I read some stories. Like the locals, I mean, they've always been pretty like fed up, but like they actually took action, and I think they passed some laws, some ordinances, like limiting the drunken.
Oh yeah,
Brits, the drunken tourists, but they actually passed something specific where it was actually like really trying to like curb all that and keep. I don't know if they had a curfew or if it was just red light district or whatever it was, but they were like, we've had it because like we live here and just all night it's just tons of people going through the streets, singing, pissing in the street, getting hammered.
That is the one thing I noticed that like, British tourists are not quiet.
Oh, you know what that is?
That's our Chinese.
That's Chinese
food.
Coming.
All right.
We'll go until the food's here, and then we'll cut things off. But yeah, it's Spain's all. You should come out, man. Spain's awesome, man.
Me too.
You have to. It's I'm trying to transition the shop to a point where I can take off once October comes and like take groups of people out there to ride bikes.
Yeah.
Hang out there a little bit and, bounce back and forth. I need something but in order to do that, I need something to offset not being in the shop. Not that you make a lot of money at a bike shop in the winter in Chicago, so,
right.
Hopefully these tours can kind of lead to something. I don't know that the tour business itself is going to net a huge profit, but hopefully you build a community of people that will, frequent your shop and buy those nice bikes. And, it's kind of the long game with it,
Yeah.
Maybe you sell a couple of nice bikes from it a month or, something like that.
It would be interesting to see if there is any data on cycle tourism, international stuff like that. It seems like it's probably gotten more popular.
It's
right?
blown up. It's completely blowing up. I mean, the scene. I mean, I'm keenly attuned to what's happening in Spain because that's kind of where my attention is focused.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that's going on there is amazing.
It's like a cake box.
Yeah, I think we ordered cake, didn't we?
I ordered one big cake.
Wow, I've never seen a presentation like that before of Chinese or Thai food like that. It comes in a like a cake box.
Wow,
it's nice.
Little special surprise.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. I mean, it's become a big destination. It's always had a kind of a racing. The bike racers have been going there for a long time for like racing camps. But lately it's become a real hub for ultra long distance riding and bike touring.
Yeah,
I
see that.
The whole bike touring boom. I think that
bike touring has really been booming.
It's huge. I don't know that the bike industry is quite in tune with what's happening out there on the streets and in the in the world because I don't hear enough about it. They still try to shove gravel racing as the thing down. They're shoving that down your throat. But the touring world and the interest in bike touring and traveling on your bike, huge out there right now. Huge. I mean, the every day I have somebody at the shop that's interested in doing it or wants to hear more or wants to go and ride with us because, they can't find like-minded people. So I think that's something that the bike industry is kind of, I think they're missing out on it. I think it's sitting right in front of their face, but it's not.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that because even like old touring bikes still sell for a lot.
Yeah.
Like old Miatas or Panasonic touring bikes.
Yeah.
I see them.
Miata. I haven't heard that name in a little
$500,
bit.
$600, $700 for like a 30-year-old bike.
Yeah. Well, because it's a good solid bike, it's
bike,
essentially a Surly, right? With rim brakes.
Exactly.
So it's I mean that is the bike touring world and the accessories that come along with that. Like that's definitely
I also like how accessible it is. Like you don't have to like. I mean, a lot of people do it later on in life too, when they've saved up and they can finally do it.
Yep.
A lot of young people do it. They take a break from work or school or whatever.
This post-COVID world is, the bike world post-COVID is very different because now you do have these kind of, people our age that are interested in touring. It used to be like old guys.
It was like old guys, yeah.
It was old guys with a mirror on their helmet. It was that guy. Everybody knew, ratty. And
the
they
canvas,
were
canvas bag.
The same gear they've had forever.
Oh, yeah. They were wearing like Spanko gloves.
Super old, like worn, like chamois.
Oh, yeah. Avocet touring shoes.
Yeah.
It's just like
toe clips.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that used to be the world of touring. Now you got this thing called a gravel bike, and they hipped it up. They sexed it. They sexed up touring a little bit,
right?
And it's brought a whole new world.
Well, I'm sure social media's had something to do with it too.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
totally.
The routes are out there, and
the routes, and seeing people with their cool friends, and you're like,
the Radivis.
I just wish I had cool friends too to go do this stuff with.
There's more FOMO than anything. In the world of bike touring. I mean, even I have it. Like I'm just like, oh man, I can't wait.
Yeah, you do. You want to do something.
Oh yeah. Like I really want to do it. Like this year,
let's do it.
I'm ready to I'm ready to. There's so many people. I'm telling you, they're like, if I were to, I have to be careful who I'm telling these days, because there could easily be 50, 60 people show up if I were to make it public, and I really don't. I don't think I could manage a group that big.
Be like Kenny and just accidentally have 50 people show up to your ride.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. There's so much interest in doing that. And so I want to I want to do a small group, and I want to go test, kind of test it out. And, I've never done that kind of riding, to be honest with you, like big, bike
big
touring
group stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's
so I think Danny has this thing staged up for us, this video.
Oh, do you guys want to watch it real quick? So,
yeah. Hold on a second. Let's see if we can. I might be able. Hold on.
I'll have to give you just a little bit of context.
We can just put this there too.
Let me see if I can do this. And hold on. And
so this is the controversial.
It was kind of criticized, and we'll see why.
Go ahead and play the audio. Let's see. Go ahead and play it.
1 second.
I think it's coming through the mic.
It's coming in, but you know what? We got to get it. Yeah.
A Peloton bike. All right, let's watch that ad really quick.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Now.
A Peloton? Give it up for our first time ride.
All right, first ride. I'm a little nervous, but excited. Let's do this. 5 days in a row. You surprised? I am. 6 a.m. Yay.
Rising with the sun.
That was totally worth it.
Let's go race in Boston. 50 rides.
She just said my name. A year ago, I didn't realize how much this would change me. Thank you.
This holiday, give the gift of Peloton.
I remember this now.
And there's a lot of backlash. And people are saying, well, you know what? Peloton is only for rich people. The way that they put out this advertisement is so sexist. On and on and on. And of course, the internet is going to hate me for saying this. But I feel like we're a little hypersensitive these days. It's just an advertisement with a woman who's exercising. Her husband got it for her. There's no word, no even thought or dramatization of her being on a diet or her needing to lose weight. So the internet is just blowing this out of proportion. And the funny thing is, their stocks actually stumbled.
Wow.
Gee.
So I think the biggest criticism was, look at the man,
The husband buying
telling
the wife,
his wife,
need to work out.
basically, you're not good enough. You need to work out and slim down or whatever.
Wow.
And I don't know, that it feels like a little bit of a strong take.
You got to reach deep for that.
I think so. I don't know, but I remember when it came out. If I'm not mistaken, Peloton took the ad down everywhere, so it's not available anymore. You have to watch it like this through like a news clip. Yeah. So as far as I could tell, I don't know. I think it was totally. And then I saw like parodies of it, and people were doing some like funny markups of like the woman getting him. I can't remember the ones, but it was people had fun with it. But it just added to their woes because they've had all kinds of issues, like real ones, and then ones like this.
No, I'm cool. You know what? I'm cool with people riding Pelotons. I don't care. You ride a lot of people will transition to riding a bike. From the Peloton.
Well, I think that got a lot of people into road cycling.
Yeah, they wanted to try it out. And I know bike shops that were making good money doing Peloton bike fittings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they would go to they would go to somebody's house and fit them on their Peloton, or set them up, or virtually. So there were people that were there were a couple of bike shops that really took advantage of that rush, and
good for them. That's smart.
Yeah, it was too late.
I would have a big ass sign like, "We fix Peloton bikes. We'll fit you."
Yeah, no, it was an interesting. I'm on these dealer meetings, and there were a couple of dealers talking about it. It wasn't real. Call for it in our immediate area, but but in their area, they were kind of a ritzy, some ritzy suburbs of Washington and stuff. And
what's it cost these days for a bike fitting?
Oh, it depends.
It
depends.
Vary quite a bit, actually.
So, like, if you're just doing kind of a basic eyeball you and take some measurements and stuff, I don't know, $100. It depends on how much I like you, but.
What about like a full
laser beams and all that stuff?
I did one in Boulder in January. I did one in
$5.
Boulder, and I think I can't remember. It was around It was between 200 and 300. I think it was closer to 300. But that was a very you can for sure go more thorough and deeper, but it was 75% there. Like it was pretty deep. Like we went through a lot of stuff.
Did you do the body map, the butt mapping and all that stuff?
We did all that.
Stuff,
we did heat mapping. We did the body mapping. He put the nodes all over me and
yeah, you had a retool or one of those.
Yeah, he was a retool guy, although he had some of his own tweaks. But I think if you want, you can get a pretty decent one. Like any bike fit is, I mean, as long as it's done well, like even a basic bike fit can go some way, because if it makes you like happier, on the bike and more comfortable, you're likely to ride more. But I think you could probably get a pretty good one for like $150. And then if you want to go like more like I'm gonna ride Ragbri, or I'm gonna do a big ride or whatever, and you want to go like deeper, I think you can get one for like I did, like maybe $200-$300, and then it kind of goes up from there if you're like hardcore like triathlete or.
I mean, the equipment that you need to charge, you're not the only people that are getting like that $300 to $400, that type of money for a fit is once you have the retools, once you have all of the gadgets. It's like it's very data driven, and you need all the hardware to.
Well, I remember we just had the Fitmaster.
Yeah.
Which the Waterford Fitmaster.
Yeah.
I know master fitters that are still just using that. They're using that, and they're using, goniometers, and they're using, they're just measuring stuff, and they got angle devices,
Two terms we just use. We got to explain what those are. What I know what it is, but tell folks what the Fitmaster was.
Yeah, Fitmaster was very analog. It was basically like a stationary bicycle, but not two wheels. It was just one wheel, and then just like a fork all the way to the floor. But it was like everything was fully articulated. So like every piece of this thing was fully adjustable and changeable. But it was just very old school. And that's what Waterford also, it had like a double purpose, because it was like fitting. But also that's, if someone ordered a custom bike, that's what we'd use.
Yeah. You essentially what you could do is you mock up a bike.
Right.
You mock up the angles of a bike, if it's a 73 and 74 degree, seat tube angle or whatever it is, headset angle, top tube length, you can mock that
there
up.
It is.
It looks like kind of like a stationary bike.
But they're very expensive, weren't they?
They were
like several $1,000s.
I have one of those.
Oh, you do?
You do?
Shop. Yeah, I picked up Mark's at Cycle
nice.
Smithy. Yeah, so when he was closing down, I went and took all of the fitting equipment that he had over there.
Huh.
All the stuff that I used. I'm like, I have lived without all of this stuff for the last 15 years. Now I want it. So.
That's cool. You got it. I feel like he's really passing it on to someone like who's going to use it like meaningfully.
Yeah, he gave me a good deal. I mean, he knew he was giving me a good deal, and he was happy to put it in the hands of.
But they were also, but they were very expensive new, right? From Waterford, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Serrata had a size cycle too, the Serrata size cycle. I think he was the first one on the market, and then there's just kind of based on that, or maybe even the same as that one.
Interesting.
And then, the one that I have has all the gadgets to lengthen the cranks, and, you could do different crank lengths, and it's cool. It's got the adjustable stem, and, the salsa adjustable stem. So it's got some cool gadgets. You can do most of the stuff you do with a retool system with one of those, and some rulers, and And
retool is like a separate, like a new system.
Well, what retool will do that some of those analog systems won't do is they give you kind of a 3D profile. So they do give you some imaging that you can't get necessarily.
Is this the one with the lasers?
Yeah,
fucking lasers.
Yeah, I mean, laser. I mean, it's a 3D system, so it really, you put these markers on the body, and it generates a 3D model.
And the whole thing can swivel. The guy will be on the side, and he'll kind of move you.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question? And I mean, I already know the answer to this, at least my answer. But I mean, for just regular people who see this stuff, they're going to say, this is all just smoke and mirrors, Like, is there some kind of like alchemy to it, or is this all real stuff?
I think with a road bike, there is some real kind of accepted rules of setting people up, because you're in a real fixed position, right? So there are some general rules that you want to follow, and I think they're kind of widely accepted as like, yeah, that's kind of the way you want to do it. I think with a mountain bike, it's a little bit different. And then there's, with some of the sophisticated systems where they have like a power meter attached to it. I mean, you can actually see some differences in the amount of power that you're putting out in one position versus the other.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
for like fitting
in real time.
Fitting,
I mean, I could actually see it on my computer, just on my trainer here. Like, so I had my mountain biking accident over a decade ago. I broke my leg, and my left calf is still a little smaller than my right, which is bad because I don't even have big calves to begin with. But I can see the imbalance. It's not a great imbalance. It's actually pretty normal now, but it's usually like 51 to 49 after like a race or a ride. Like it kind of evens out almost. But like just like that's a cool advancement too. Like you can kind of see that stuff. We couldn't do that back in the day. So one thing about like you were saying a little. Look at that guy. Look at that guy riding his bike.
Oh, cool.
He had those like lights around,
like the lights
his wheels, but he was doing a wheelie. It looked really cool. Hanging out in Logan Square. But anyway, the bike fit I did was really cool because we talked a lot about, and something you said there reminded me of it. Some of the kind of quote unquote traditional stuff is kind of being like tweaked and re-examined. For example, like this is kind of race related, but for a long time, it was like slam your stem, right? So it was like, be like everyone would be like the pros. They'd see the pros on TV or in the magazines, on the websites. It's like, oh, I got to like slam my stem, cut everything down, cut that sear tube, slam that stem, and then get a negative slant stem.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing's like fucking hitting the ground, right?
Sure.
And so it's like, I'm so aero, I'm so cool. And then, other things were like, maybe you put your seat all the way back.
It was almost like the 80s time trialing bikes where it was like,
the funny bikes. Yeah.
And then like, it's changed now. Again, not everyone, but you see it. There's a thing now where riders are bringing back the stem. They're bringing it back up.
Sure.
And they're realizing through lots of really specific testing in wind tunnels and stuff that it's not so important to be really, really low. It's important to be like level for aerodynamics.
And thin.
That's more important. Well, thin and
like
dope helps.
Yeah. But I mean, like your
I thought you meant like cyclists.
Yeah, no, but like like your profile to the
wind.
to the wind.
Yeah. So
kind of slight.
Hence the narrower bars. But that's just like one example. But like when I started doing my thing, and I'm like trying to be like realistic, like I'm not a pro, I'm not like anywhere near that. I do like being aero, but what I realized too, and I was looking at a lot of photos and I was talking to people, I don't need to really go. I cut my sear tube a tiny bit, but I don't need to really go any lower because I'm quote unquote fairly aero for me. I'm getting somewhat flat-ish, but the idea is I'm not trying to go lower. I'm just trying to get like flat. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we were talking about this earlier today. There was this guy who was, I guess, not directly involved in the crash, but was a little bit of a casualty from it. But
he got kicked.
Yeah,
he literally got kicked.
His like really fancy electronic derailleur got kicked.
Oh,
but no, we were talking about the changes in frame geometry, even from the last like 10, 15 years.
Oh yeah.
This other guy had a specialized allay. And the head tube is like this big,
tiny, short,
totally short, super aggressive. And then Danny's bike has a head tube that's like this big.
Yeah, really tall. Yeah,
like really tall. So
there's a big change. I mean, I was talking to a guy who runs a fit school, and even people's bodies, like the bike racers' bodies, have changed from like the 80s and 90s.
Was saying too,
they're beefier now,
like more bulk. Because I just remember like they were always super thin, no extra muscle, no bulk, except like maybe like Jan Ulrich and Lance Armstrong.
Yeah. Well, you look at the guys now, the top five, you have, Van Aert, you have Van der Poel, you have Pidcock, you have Pogacar, like the 4 or 5 top best riders in the world. Like, again, you put them in like a regular population, like they're still going to look really, really thin. But if you compare them to cyclists 5, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, like they look very muscular. I actually think it's similar to the NBA because the NBA players of like the 70s, 80s, like you can tell like when Pippen and like the Bulls were at their peak, like they were so ripped. They were kind of jacked.
They're like the monsters. Yeah.
Like I see kind of an analogy there too, like cycling later for cycling, but like now that you look at Pogacar, like he's got muscle. Again, it's like relative to cycling muscle, but back in the day, remember all those like super thin climbers? Even the climbers now, even Pitcock, even though he's a small guy, like
the chicken.
The chicken. Oh yeah, the chicken, Rasmussen.
Yeah, the
So
chicken.
thin.
Yeah, and I mean, like even their thighs, like they're because of the position on the bike, like their calves and stuff, or their thighs were
quads
really big. Their quads,
their
butts,
yeah,
and their butts were different shape.
They're in the gym. They're in the gym now.
So you're obviously like you're more in tune with what's going on in the bike industry, but I've also heard and seen just from reading stuff and watching YouTube, but I guess like the trend now is going to shorter crank arm length now too, right? Like so like the 175 and the 172s, like that's no longer people don't do that or like that anymore, right?
Well, no, they still do some still do those. Like for example, I'm 6'2", I have an inseam of like 33. I've always ridden 172.5s, and I know pros around my size, they still do that. But there is a trend, especially for shorter riders, they're going smaller. So they're going like what 165, 170,
or like even smaller.
Yeah,
right?
165.
So
it's hard to get too much smaller because they don't even make them. Like in the nicer stuff, you can't get it unless it's like something custom or weird.
So I think a lot of the data research. I don't follow this all super closely, but I think the gist is like they've been able to show like higher cadence, shorter is actually better. I think Evenepoel is, if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the leaders in like going with shorter cranks. I think he made like some big headlines with that because like he does like crazy amounts of testing and all this stuff. But how the fuck did we get talking about this stuff?
I don't know, but it's interesting. Cleat.
I love it.
Cleat placement too. Like your cleat. Before it used to be like the ball under the ball of your foot. The cleat would be under the ball of your foot, and these days the cleat's set
it's
way
jacked back. Yeah,
we were talking about old guys with their twin bikes and their old gloves.
Yeah, and then it became really high tech.
Dear reader, the funny thing here is now we're the old guys.
We are.
And their O.J. Simpson gloves.
The other thing too is to slam the saddle forward now. So if you look at Vanderpool, if you look at some of these guys, the saddle is all the way forward or close to it. Some guys still ride a really low slam. Vanderpool still rides a very low slam. But a lot of people have realized you'll see guys. It's actually kind of funny now. I'll go through Getty Images and just look at race photos.
Oh, it's very different now.
It's really interesting. You see World Tour pros in the biggest races with like a lot of spacers. I was going to say stacks.
Yeah.
A lot of spacers, like they have higher, they kind of realize they don't need to be that low, and it's also more comfortable, but it's like very aero. So
if you look at those time trial bikes now, like they all have like those risers on their on their forearm pads and stuff.
Aren't the stems integrated now?
Oh
yeah, it's all
bikes?
crazy.
Yeah.
It's all crazy now. Yeah.
Like on a Canon, like on your new bike, you couldn't just swap the stem out, could you? Or
so mine is actually mine's like there's been a few iterations of it, and Joe might know this better than me, but they obviously had the stem and the bar forever and ever, and then they at some point started to integrate them, and then there was like the one piece. Like the Canyon's infamous for this. People love and hate it, but Canyon is like you get it and that's it. Like there's no movement. Like you can't do anything. They've upgraded since then. But to fast forward to now, what a lot of them are doing is it looks like a one piece, but if you look closely, there's actually you can actually tilt the bar up and down, but it's so sleek and clean. Again, these are super expensive systems, but that's what mine has. So it looks like kind of a one-piece system, but if you look closely, it's actually just a bar, but it's so aero looking around it and clean. It's really integrated.
The headset spacers are unique. But I think the steer tube on your bike is round.
They're very proprietary and a big pain in the ass. Like if you need something, like if you got stuck in Mallorca and Mallorca is a bad example because they have a lot of amazing bike shops, which we could talk about, but yeah, I mean, if you like bust something, like you could be really
that goes for a lot of the high end bikes.
Yes.
I was gonna say, but
it doesn't matter. But
isn't this like I don't know? But is this
not just Cannondale?
Is this also something that Cannondale's kind of always been known for? Kind of doing a little bit like unusual stuff, like the lefty fork. And
they've always had. They've always
like
been.
that.
They've been. For a long time, they were the quirky bike company, but now everybody's a quirky bike.
Yeah.
Everybody's very proprietary and. You can't get it unless you go to a specialized shop.
I've like seen that like the lefty fork is legit. Like people are like, it's amazing. The engineering is.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's legit. It's just.
I could never get past it visually. I rode a lefty for about a few months. I couldn't get past it visually. I never felt 100% confident on it because I just couldn't explain it.
Yeah, like how does it work? That's always been a killer for Cannondale.
Right.
Although, like there are some great online demonstrations of why it's so far
But the interesting
superior.
thing though is that it's the same as like a car.
Yeah,
axle.
airplanes, cars,
Yeah.
motorcycles. Like
It's just the visual.
Yeah, they just
Right.
they just downsized it for a bike. Yeah.
Right.
But you have some like amazing cyclists like racing it and riding it, so it's perfectly good. It's just
It just never took off.
yeah.
And I saw a video of like the head shock where like someone pulled it all apart, and it's like these little bearings, but they're like rollers.
Roller bearings. There's like
roller
8
bearings.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's octagonal.
And, and apparently it's like super smooth.
super
And then,
smooth.
and then after I saw it, I'm like, I want to get a head shock bike now, or like just like try it, like
yeah.
AJ's new thing.
Yeah.
I love
like
it.
the retro tech. But yeah, it's like apparently it's like really smooth, like very fine tolerances, like yeah.
Yeah. It's super high tech, and I don't mean to like get super down this rabbit hole because we can go forever. But
By the way,
also-
can I steal that? Fine Tolerances. That's the name of my new podcast album and
There you go.
brand.
oh, nice.
But
It's
you know what I
good,
mean?
right?
Like,
Fine
very-
Tolerances.
very,
that would be
yeah.
good.
Ah.
And we're trademarking that. Don't steal it.
Here, go ahead. Sorry.
Inside that fork, so you know how a regular fork has like it's round inside another round tube.
Right.
This is actually, if you look inside of like a lefty, it's octagonal in there. So
Okay.
it's like locking in. So it kind of keeps it from twisting
From
around.
twisting.
And
Right.
the twisting and the binding is what is a big downfall of the
Okay. So
standard
do the
forks.
bearings go bad in those?
They can, although not very
Not
often.
really.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't changed them very often. Although we are in the Midwest and we don't really get them hardcore, but
Right.
but yeah, I mean, they hold up pretty well. I've serviced plenty of lefties in my time. I don't do them very often anymore because there's just not enough.
They're just not.
I wonder if there's a reason they went with lefty instead of righty. Or was it like a marketing thing?
Well, I'm sure
Or is there
lefties are
like a
weird.
logical
I'm sure
reason?
there's a reason for it. Probably
Yeah.
the disc brake.
Oh,
All that stuff
that would make
works.
sense.
It has to be
Yeah.
on the left, and all that.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
that
I
makes
don't know.
total sense.
It's the first
Because
thing I would think
disc
about.
brakes were on mountain bikes, and that's where the lefty started, right?
Yep. Yeah. So
Should we eat?
I say we eat. Let's take a break. We'll come back here with full stomachs and something else
And try to
talk
stay
about.
awake.
Oh yeah. All right.
Thanks for listening to the Bike Shop Society podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at mail@bikeshopsociety.com. If you're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you can look us up at Bike Shop Society. That's it. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Now, back to the show. Goodbye.
Danny was telling us that the police showed up knocking on his door.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was up early watching a bike race and eating some eggs, hanging out.
What
And,
bike race? This is a cycling show.
yeah.
What bike race were you
I
watching?
believe so. There's like a flurry of like just less, quote unquote, lesser races on. I think it was the
E3 Pilbus or whatever that is.
no, that was a few weeks ago. The race named literally after a highway,
Uh-huh.
E3 Harelbeke.
Yeah.
But no, it was the something Jura, which is the mountains and the medium mountains in France, the Classica Jura or something.
Man, that's hardcore.
It was actually cool.
Where'd you catch that?
So a lot of since we lost GCN,
Uh-huh.
a lot of the racing now is on Max, which is actually kind of cool because like the picture is like crystal clear. It's like
the
comes
Max
on.
app.
Yeah, the app.
Really?
Yeah, the
Oh.
former HBO. So they rebranded it Max or whatever. So
Wow.
it's on there. And then there's still some stuff on Peacock. Like I think Paris-Roubaix was on Peacock last week.
Yeah, they have all like the Tour de France. They have those. They have the
Like
events
the ASO ones.
The ASO
yeah.
ones. Yeah.
So, but a lot of it's on Max, and Max has like a ton of stuff. Like I watched.
Really?
There was that stage race I think in Spain all last week. That
País Vasco.
no, it wasn't Pay Vasco. Unless they renamed it. It's hard to keep up. They renamed these freaking races. It kind of gets confusing. What was my point of mentioning that race though?
You were watching it
police.
this morning.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I was eating my eggs and watching this race, and all of a sudden, like, here, our freaking buzzer is like a very jarring sound, and I just figured it was like an Amazon dude or something. But I was like, "Hi, this is Detective blah blah blah," and I was like, "Oh, I'll be right down." And so I went down, and long story short, it's like, did you hear any gunshots last night at 1:30 a.m.? And I'm like,
Wow.
no, I was passed out I always wear earplugs. And I'm like, sorry. She's like, no, it's okay. We're just canvassing. And she took my name and info. And I did tell her that 2 nights ago, there was a car on fire in our alley. And so the cops came for that. I'm like, just mentioning it just in case somehow it's related. But other than that, no, I didn't hear any gunshots.
But I was joking that that's when you know Logan Square is gentrified, when the police are actually like knocking on doors asking about shootings. They're actually concerned about shootings.
Concerned about a shooting.
20 years ago, they would have never done that.
No,
right.
Yeah. It's just.
But Logan Square, a lot of good memories. Good times.
It's a good town. It's a good part of town.
It's a neighborhood in Chicago that's kind of turned like a lot of neighborhoods, and it's like it's come. It used to be 20 years ago, kind of a little rough.
Let's put it this way: it was not on white people's radar at all.
No, it was pioneers. The pioneers lived here, like you. Right?
Well, we were talking about going to house parties, and the skinheads would show up and start busting heads.
Well, the rent was cheap.
Yeah,
you could have a loud party, and nobody would call the cops. For the most part, and people were.
I remember I'd see my first building was over at Fullerton and Albany, and it was like, I think, on the border of a turf.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd always be this kid tagging the corner of the building, but he would see me and just see I was like a white guy, and then just go back to spraying. And I'm like, well, just go about my
you weren't going
business.
to cause any trouble.
No,
it's okay. It's like you weren't. They were like, oh,
yeah,
gringo.
So then just go to my apartment. $775 for a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, sweet, man. But probably a bunch of bike messengers and waitresses and waiters.
A lot of BO.
A lot of those are always the funnest neighborhoods. I mean, Wicker Park.
Well, I was telling you my little story about
a lot of PBR drinking.
A lot of PBR drinking. A lot of experimenting with stuff for the first time.
All kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. So Giro d'Abruzzo. So obviously Italy, right?
Yeah.
So that was Lusenko won that. That was a recent weekly stage race. I was thinking of a Spanish race for some reason, but then this classic the Jura. So I think it was in the Jura Mountains of France. It was cool. So the racing's heating up. Obviously, we just had the big classics: Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Flanders.
I thought they called the season off because all those guys got hurt. Didn't they just decide to call it all?
I've been out of the news loop for about 36 hours. I did watch bike racing, but it was kind of like recorded.
Vinigo's out right now, right? And they don't know if he's going to die or not. Like apparently his dad doesn't know anything, right? Like
here's what's crazy.
Controversy.
So there was a massive, pretty crazy crash. It wasn't like actually the craziest crash, but it was kind of crazy.
Because of the names involved, because of the people involved in the crash.
It was literally Evenepoel, Vingegaard, a few other star riders, and then some other riders. What's kind of crazy for me personally is I literally turned the TV on, and the crash happened, like, I'm not joking, like 5 seconds later. Like, I just plopped myself down. I had a cup of coffee in my hand, and I turn on Max, and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm following this race, like 40K left or whatever it was, and I just see everyone describe in real time, and my brain didn't like process it. Like I'm like, what just happened? And then they're all like, oh, crash, been go down. There was a drainage ditch. So they were going. It was downhill, and it was a sweeping bend, and there was a drainage ditch off to the left, just like 30 feet, right?
Oh yeah, big one,
a big one, and they like didn't just some of Evenepoel went off the road and onto. He got kind of lucky, so he was riding like cyclocross style off into the grass, weaving in between like proper trees. Vingegaard goes into the drainage ditch.
Drainage ditch like concrete.
It was just concrete. Like imagine like a trough or like a giant sofa, but just like concrete.
Yeah.
He fucking goes into that. So he I think collarbone, lung. The big thing was the collapsed lung because they couldn't fly him from the hospital he was in. They didn't want to risk it. Anyway, broke all kinds of shit. Other guys crashed. And so now it's been like, crashing is always like on the radar. Like it's such a difficult sport to protect.
What's his name? Roglic.
Roglic as well.
Got hurt there.
So they all pulled out. Anyway, I don't know how we got on the topic, but the classics were great. I don't know if you watched, but Vanderpool, Domination, super fun. I actually thought Roubaix was great. His ride was amazing, but we always have this conversation. It felt he attacked from like what
60K,
60K,
right? Yeah.
like almost broke a record for the longest attack. It was cool, but like kind of boring.
They say the classics never go out of style.
Yes.
Well, I think
Anyone get that reference?
Is that Bono?
Refused.
Oh,
The post-punk band.
yeah.
I think
Before we started recording, we were talking about old punk and industrial stuff.
There you go.
wide-ranging show.
And then Van Aert had a crash in a separate race. Anyway, not to go down that rabbit hole, but
do it. Go down the rabbit hole.
We're racing. We're watching the racing. But yeah, crashing is back in the headlines
because
in a big way.
Wout Van Aert crashed. And
he crashed.
He crashed his way out of the Spring Classics.
Well, the last pod we talked about how he was pulling out and he went to altitude camp for 22 days.
Specifically for this time of the year.
Yes, for Flanders.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't have Flanders or Roubaix on my resume and I got to have that. So he comes back and crashes in one of the middle E3 races, like whatever. Jax is on the mic.
Like in the middle of the week, right? One of those Wednesday races.
Like,
right?
A great race to win, but one of the lesser races, kind of like a race to get him in shape for the bigger race.
He crashes way out.
So he crashes out.
There was a crash today.
There was a crash
in Danny's race.
There was a crash in my race, dude.
That's right, Dan. I don't know that we mentioned the fact that Danny has a race today. He raced today, a criterium today, and racing tomorrow. So he's doing a show, drinking a little wine, having a little Chinese food, and racing tomorrow. That's a man.
All these good things for me.
He doesn't have his big inflatable leg thing on right now.
Space legs,
Zen music or anything.
Space legs.
He's drinking wine.
I did meditate today.
Oh, okay.
Well, so that helps.
Yeah, and we had Margs earlier.
We had Margs. I had one. I kept it to one.
You've had two different countries' foods.
I made up my calories.
Yeah,
it was a good race. We raced at the Calumet Park, Calumet Park, right near the Calumet Fisheries, which unfortunately has closed down because of fire. And we're saying, have you ever been there, Calumet Fisheries?
Long
it's kind
time
of famous.
Yeah, I've been there forever.
It's right by the Blues Brother Bridge.
Right by that bridge.
Anyway, the Skyway Classic Criterium. So it was fun. Had a good time. It was a pretty fast race. We averaged like 26. So that was not a slow race. But there was this the one thing I'll just tell you about it, because the rest probably isn't very interesting, but it's like halfway through the race and, there's some like sketchy road surfaces and whatever, we're cruising along, but there was a puddle off to the left and, we're already halfway through the race. So we already did like 10, 20 laps or something. I don't know what happened, what the guy was thinking, but this dude over to my left, and I just kind of see him in my peripheral because I'm kind of focusing on the riders in front of me and stuff. He makes a quick move to avoid the puddle, so he turns right. He just kind of does one of those, He bangs into the guy next to him, and the guy who actually started it, he was fine. He kept riding, but he bangs into this guy next to him. That guy was to my front left, and I guess I just had the instinct, so I just braked. I didn't stop completely, but I braked just enough. He goes right across my line, hits the guy to my right, and then that guy hits the guy to his right. So those three all crash together.
Whoa.
We're probably doing, I'm guessing 22, 25 maybe. So we're moving. So just carbon all crashing down together. Three guys, their helmets smacking the ground. It was loud and it was visceral. And I was like, fuck. And the guys behind me were all pissed off at the guy who was avoiding the puddle because he could have just ridden right through the puddle.
Sure, yeah.
And, to be fair, I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose, but just that's what you get in these lower races. So anyway, that was a little jarring to see that and be a part of that. Yeah, it was a beautiful day. AJ's got some footage here. Thanks for coming out, AJ. That was cool. I asked him yesterday. I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm doing a race. Are you bored? You got your daughter this week? And he's like, no, I'll come out. So we had a good time.
It was a good time.
Got the dog out. We got Lucy out.
Oh, nice.
She was very popular.
It was really pretty.
Really?
Oh my God.
Good way to pick up chicks.
Well, we were talking about that too.
Oh yeah. Bring a dog.
Well, her coat's blowing out pretty bad.
Got to bring that brush.
But yeah, she had a good time. It was great weather too. I mean, we were saying when we were getting dinner, it was like one of those. It's not a very long period in Chicago, but
spring.
That short window where it feels like LA.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 70 and sunny during the day, and then
Yes.
a little cool at night, but just like perfect.
Tolerable,
you know?
light jacket. Yeah.
Just like awesome.
My my little Garmin said it was 66 at race time, so it was really nice out. Tomorrow we go back, do the same thing in reverse. Just a good local crit, kind of fun, good community. They're trying to get a lot of young folks and new riders, so there were like people racing in like t-shirts with their number pinned on. It was cute, it was like just people showing up like really excited to like be in a bike race. Like remember like how cool that was, like doing your first like bike race or two. It was so nerve wracking, at least for me. I'm like, what am I doing? How does this work? Am I going to get dropped in one block?
That was the Half Acre cycling team, right?
That's right. Yeah. And I know some of the people on that team a little bit, and I don't know, they just have like a crazy good vibe, and they're really into like the community. And they're all about like bringing like super inclusive, like bringing a lot of people in.
Well, they've been around for a while now too.
Long time.
Yeah.
You know who their first?
They have good beer.
You know who their first bike shop sponsor was?
Actually,
Yeah,
it's in your bathroom.
It's in my
It's in your bathroom. He has a plaque. Thank
nice.
you, to BC.
Thank you, Cycle Smithy.
Oh,
Actually.
Cycle
I was
Smithy, of
working at
course.
Cycle Smithy when I cut that deal. You know where I cut that deal? Or like I
At the brewery?
I talked to them about becoming their sponsor because I had just gotten back to the bike shop and I was trying to do cool things in the bike community and stuff. And I identified them as a well put together team. Like they had a thing going on. They had
I forget what was the
nice
one guy.
jerseys.
Chris Jensen.
Chris Jensen was one of them. There was another guy who had a Rottweiler. I forgot what his name is. And, actually Mia Moore. Remember Mia at the bike shop? She used to race with them as well. But this is before any of them.
So where did you cut the deal?
It was in the infield of Cross Vegas.
What? That's cool.
Yeah, because those guys were out at Interbike, and I ran into one of the guys in charge of Half Acre, and I'm like, listen, I can, you guys aren't working with a bike shop. We'll be your bike shop, and you guys will get you a discount and put us on the jersey and stuff. And that was like, I don't know, 2007, 2008.
Had to been.
That's pretty cool, man.
And then we were the shop sponsor for IIT.
IIT, yeah, which I still am.
And they took advantage of that discount, the shop discount. They were in all the time.
And I took advantage of them. I mean, actually, one of the kids helped me build the bike shop. A couple of those kids helped me build the bike shop. And then one of the kids from the IIT team worked for me for years as a mechanic. And to this day, like, I got somebody's bike in there right now from the IIT cycling team who I'm working, one of them helped me with some construction at the house. They did all the,
And for anyone listening, IIT is Illinois Institute of Technology.
Yeah, they're known for engineers and architects.
And architecture.
And I took advantage of the architect school, the architectural, school there. Yeah.
What did
cut the counters for the bike shop at the school because they had this big.
I always kind of got the impression that Mark didn't really care about.
He didn't care about any of that stuff,
right? Like,
yeah, and it was work for him.
So how did you get him to like just go with it?
Well, because he was, as long as somebody else did the work, he was kind of okay with it. They'd spend some money there and buy some stuff. They were buying stuff. And they got a significant discount. And if it didn't take up a lot of effort, he was cool with it. And then at some point he would get frustrated with it, or we were spending too much time on it, or the people that like me had initiated it left, and then he had no interest in it because he had to do work.
Right.
But like a lot of the things that happened at that store, if you did it and it was good for the shop, then it was great. Mm-hmm. But he didn't want any extra work.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
if it's going to if I got to do something about it, then forget it.
and then those were the two, that was it, right? Half Acre and IIT. Because then actually John started a Cycle Smithy team.
We had a Cycle Smithy team.
Yeah.
We
John and Eric, right?
Because of Cross. Yeah, we got jerseys made, and
I remember that. I think I have an old jersey still.
Yeah, we got it on the front of the
I was never on the team. I've only done like 3 races ever, but
you were on the cover of the Sun Times?
Yeah, they did a big thing about Cross in Chicago. It was
nice.
Like, they did like one of their Sunday supplements or one of those things. And we were right on the front page. It was great.
I just remember like when you guys decided that that you're going to do the cross thing, everyone got really serious about it, like immediately.
Oh yeah, it was very.
I remember Eric W. like literally that day, he's just like online. He's like ordering a red line, at Cost or whatever, like himself. And John's like, doing his what do you call it? Like jumping out of the saddle in the store when there's no one in there.
Yeah, it was
mounts and remounts.
It was ridiculous. The whole thing was kind of. It was like over the top.
And then I just always remember Nick and God, I can't remember the other guy's name. He was before I started. Glasses, drove an old BMW, but they'd always do like on track bikes on the floor, and they'd like balance and like try and like knock each other over with like the front wheels.
Yeah, there was all sorts of hijinks going on because that was the era of fixed gear. The whole fixed gear single speed thing was going on, and then cross was hitting really hard. So there was a convergence of that at the shop.
Yep.
And actually, a lot of the fixed gear guys were the guys that were racing cyclocross as well. It was very
they were very strong riders.
Yeah. They were riding a lot. So interesting time there.
Good times.
Yeah, but it's funny going all the way back
Yes.
to that half-acre team. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a long history with those guys.
So they have a cool vibe. They're all about being inclusive and getting people out, and I think that's fun. I mean, it's how you grow the sport.
Yeah, they've been
Because
doing
cycling is super intimidating.
They've been doing that race for a long time.
Yeah.
So I mean that race goes back at least 10 years or more. 15 years probably because I think they were doing it back then.
They have good beer too.
Have you talked about what it goes into starting a crit series on your cat podcast yet?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a little bit. It's a pain in the ass, quite frankly.
We have talked about it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bike racing. It's hard. It's hard, and it's you don't make any money at it. It's a
labor of love.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. If you don't have a cycling club, then it's hard to, the manpower needed to put one of those things on. Like usually the people that are successful at doing kind of these grassroots events, they have kind of a thriving bike club. And there aren't a lot of those these days. Like a lot of those guys from the 70s and 80s have aged out of it. They don't,
right.
This half acre club is one of the teams. Triple X is another team here in Chicago that puts on bike races, but I don't know any. There aren't very many other teams that put on bike races because they're a lot of work.
Right.
They take up a lot of mental space.
Well, the new club rides are unaffiliated fun rides.
Yeah, there's the liability aspect of it too. So a lot of it is very loosey-goosey because nobody really it's kind of out there, but nobody wants to claim credit for it because if somebody gets hurt on these rides, then who's responsible? So
yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons why everything is kind of like, hey, there's people are meeting on this corner
right,
to do something. If you want to come, that's great.
That's how the Red Hook crit got started.
Yeah.
So I went to, I think, almost every edition up until the very end, but it was just like in my neighborhood, and my friend's like, I'm doing this race, but I remember the New York Times covered it. They came out, but it was literally 5, 6, 7 fixed gear, basically bike messengers. And David Trimble, the creator of it, like just had like a good knack for like branding and like cool, crazy prizes. Like first prize was like $100 and like singles and like super crisp, like a nice block
brand
of
new
cash and like some like cool Chinelli like swag. Like he had a connect there. Like anyway, it just made it great. And it was an after party. But then like the second year, so it went from like 7 people. I remember reporting on this for Velo News. It was like 100.
Wow.
And then next year it was like 500. And I mean, you guys all know the Red Hook crit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it eventually met its demise, but
Yeah,
kind of the same idea though, because a lot of it had to do with the legal aspect, getting the permit, getting the insurance.
Yep.
Who's going to insure you with like 400 fixed gear dudes riding their bikes, no brakes, on cobblestones through roads that aren't closed off, and there's like literally pictures like from the old days of like the riders like speeding around buses and stuff. And
because Red Hook back then was like kind of industrial, right? Or it was sort of warehouses or
it's very so there's a bunch of shipping that happens like really close by. It's got a really interesting history. It's definitely got a lot of little warehouses.
It's almost like the old West Loop, maybe in some
Kind of,
ways.
yeah. It's like got a lot of old cobblestone streets. It's a little like beat up, but like in a good character kind of way. And people kind of tuned into it. Now there's like, it's very artsy now. I still like it, but like there's a
IKEA there.
They opened a Tesla dealership there. I covered that for Business Insider. They have an IKEA. So it's not the same. It's still cool. They have a really cool old bar called Sonny's Bar, which is still many people's favorite bar in the U.S.
I'm proud that you know that there's an IKEA there.
Yeah.
Well, we did a tour there when I was at Curbed. We did a whole Red Hook
Did you?
tour. Yeah, and it was a really hot day. New York can get really hot.
Oh, God. Like stifling hot. People talk about Chicago. I'm like, go to New York. Anyway, but yeah, same idea. Like super difficult to get permits and stuff. But he managed to pull it off.
What's like the big messenger fixed gear race in New York called? Like Monster?
Well, no, that was at Red Hook Crit.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the big one. I mean, there's
one now.
there's
I
other
forget what
ones
it's called, but
Monster I've heard of
Monster
too.
Jam or something. Monsters.
You're right. It's something like that. I was never big into that scene.
It's on YouTube, but man, you'll have sweaty palms watching those videos.
Yes.
The whole way through.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a big. I mean,
And those guys are just hammering.
yeah.
Talk about wrecks, dude. Talk about crashes.
Yes.
There's this one crash in one of these videos of this race. This guy just plows straight into a yellow cab.
Holy cow!
Oh no, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, Jesus.
Wow. Yeah, and people were traveling from all over the world at, towards the end. I remember, they were sending teams from all over the place.
Oh, for these races?
Yeah, for red, like
Oh, for the Red Hook stuff?
Yeah, because Italy would like send the team. There were like people coming.
It is
traveling.
interesting because you don't really. I mean, I don't know. This is completely empirical, but I don't see people riding track or fixed gear bikes except for like kids, like high school age kids.
Yeah, it's a different group of people these days. Yeah, they are younger kids these days.
Right.
I think that,
and it's not so much like the weird obsession with Japanese stuff anymore either. It's just like
cheap.
It's like kind of the
Virago
cheap leader or like
leader,
whatever. Yeah.
As
we're back, 15 years ago, it was always like NJS, whatever.
Well, you know what? That crowd, interesting. So that crowd has, we're talking 15 years ago, right, AJ? So those guys are now suburban dads.
Yeah.
And they come to my shop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that is now, they are now a lot of, they got kids that are 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
And they are the new touring and gravel group.
Mm-hmm.
They're the group that are buying Surleys and wanting to travel and get away from, get away from the family for a couple hours,
That's so
on the
funny.
weekends and stuff.
It's so true though. It's like,
it's really what has given me at the bike shop a lot of confidence of like kind of changing things up a little bit, because now they're living out there, like they have a young family. They're 40 years old, 45 years old. They worked in the city. They were, they're advertising. They were working at advertising companies or Groupon or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now they're living in the suburbs. And
I mean, it's kind of funny because like, speaking of old shop employees, but like, you're basically describing Russell.
Yeah.
He rode like one of those Japanese track bikes, and now he's like got a beard, he's like a dad, and
Really?
I don't know what he does now, but it's like some like he like I think he lives in the suburbs. And he's just like total just total dad.
Eric Blankenship, same guy. Another guy that we worked with at the bike shop. He's like he started working. He was a Specialized rep,
right?
So he was working with Specialized, and then recently, I don't know how I got fed. I was fed something from the like home builder show or one of those like Vegas shows, and I'm watching. I'm like, oh, what's new in in home goods and stuff. Yeah. And there he was doing a demo for a ladder company, and he's selling ladders, and he's like in construction.
I mean, I guess like even me, it's like I'm a dad now too, and
I mean, it's a natural progression, right?
Not as well, I was never as flexible as those guys were back then, but I mean, there's no way in hell I'd be on a track bike today riding around the city.
No. But they're out in the suburbs riding, cross bikes. And actually, I just got a text from one of the old Cycle Smithy bike racing guys, and some of those guys are picking up the bike again, and they're like, "Hey, what's new in the Cannondale road bikes? I'm looking to get a new road bike."
Evo.
Well, I was showing Joe and Danny my new dad bike, new old dad bike. I'll do the quick summary, but it's a Shinola. I forget the model, but they were all the same bike. But I think one was a single speed, one was a 3-speed, internal 3-speed, and then there was one that was an 8-speed. And the one I got was the 3-speed. But the thing that's so cool about them, or that I thought was interesting, is that they were this collaboration between Shinola and then Waterford, who we've talked a lot about, or at least when I've been on.
Yep.
And then pretty famous bicycle designer, Sky Yeager. And so they were kind of these like city bikes, but sort of elevated, like really nice, hand-built.
Yeah.
Has like a biplane fork on it, so it's like kind of got some cool stuff, like cool design. And this is also a bike I think is probably 10 years old, maybe more. I can't remember.
Maybe more.
But it's even got like Velo Orange stuff that came on it, like spec'd. So it was like it was basically like a hipster dad bike. And But now that they've been around long enough, like no one really knows or cares about it. And so someone just listed it for sale. I'm like, damn. Well, I want that.
It's a good looking bike.
Bucks,
It's a good looking bike. I actually got to ride it.
So and
fenders. Did the bike have
fenders and internal 3-speed and it's interesting because I won't go too much into Shinola, but it seemed like when that company first started, it was very, very hyped. There was a lot of hype around it.
Yeah, there was
a lot of hype around the watches, a lot of hype around their like leather goods.
Joe's race.
Nice.
Soldier Field.
Wow.
And but there was also criticism of the company after a few years. And anyways, I won't go into all the stuff about the watches. It turned out the watches were maybe overpriced or whatever. And it just reminds me of you guys remember like say 2010, 2011, when like every bar was like a whiskey bar suddenly.
Yeah.
And like all the bartenders had like the big mustaches and like the white shirts.
Yeah.
Like Shinola.
Like old barbers.
Like Shinola like embodied that whole like peak hipster kind of culture.
They were tapping into that vibe.
The whole like
totally insufferable.
Commercializing
of the whole like bespoke stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I think
commodification.
So I think
when Heritage Bike Works kind of opened up like that time.
Totally, that was almost like Chicago's
kind of wax
version
you
of it.
using in your beer, bro?
That Heritage was almost like Chicago's version of it. So, anyways, the brand kind of got watered down. I think people lost interest. It was almost like I remember back then. I used to listen to XRT, and it was like Mumford and Sons non-fucking stop.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God, like lose my mind.
That's what happens when you go to hell.
It's just like, I'm just thinking like
Coldplay.
I'm just thinking like
on rotation.
I'm just thinking like Longman and Eagle and Mumford and Sons and all this like kind of like and so anyways, so I don't know if the brand, like I don't know if Shinola is even still around anymore. I don't know if it matters, but the bike itself is really nice. It's an awesome bike, but also I'm almost 40 years old. I like a good young cruiser bike.
Yeah, it was made at Waterford.
It was made by
I think
Waterford.
we're talking about
it has Waterford labeling on it somewhere.
Yeah, Waterford used to make a lot of bikes for a lot of different people. So
Wait, so what was this? This is from Joe's race?
Yeah, that was just a little pic of me racing. I flew in from New York. I was visiting just home, and I brought my bike, and because I knew, so I did this crit, I think the summer before, and I was kind of like, it was another one of my many kind of comeback years. So I had my old like Merlin and some old kit, but then I trained up, and this was the year I was like doing pretty well.
That's with Foundation, right?
Yeah.
Where the Foundation.
Wait, this is you right here?
Yeah.
In the front?
Yeah. And
like a XXX jersey?
That's Foundation,
Okay.
which still has a team. I watched them tonight racing the Sunday King Crit. They have, that's the elite travel team. I wasn't on that team, but point being is I came back that next year, and Yeah, I did better. I didn't like win the race or anything,
That's
but
probably like 2010, right?
that would have been probably 2011.
2011?
I put this up as a TBD, but
10 or 11, right around there.
Yeah.
I remember when you were doing that.
actually, it had to be 2011. But
I reached out to Joe for reference when I was applying to intern at Active Transportation Alliance, I believe.
But that was so much fun, and yeah, I was like, I hadn't seen Joe in like a million years, and like, I don't know how we got in touch. I think I emailed you. I had your old like My Odias like email, whatever, and I'm like, Joe, are you still around? Like, what are you doing? Are you in Spain? Are you alive? And you're like, yeah, I got this like little bike race series over at Soldier Field. I'm like, what? And it was super fun. Kenny LeBay was there, and
yeah, it was fun. That was a good time. I mean, it's just we're about to open the bike shop. We're opening the bike shop. We had like an agency that we're doing like event management at that time, so that was like one of our gigs. But it was kind of when the economy was going bust. So there was a lot less. We were kind of scrambling to do anything, including we did this bike race because we had a good relationship with the people that sold. The only reason we could do that race was because we were doing a lot of soccer events around that time, and we were really good friends
at Soldier Field.
At Soldier Field,
gotcha.
So we were good friends with the people at Soldier Field, and we would rent Soldier Field like 4 or 5 times a year to do these soccer events. And so when we asked them if we could use the parking lot to do this bike racing event, they gave us a really good deal. Like there's no way like I could walk over there now and say, hey, can I rent that and do a bike race there? It was also when Chicago was bidding for the Olympics.
Right.
And so the city,
Daily
2016 Olympics.
Yeah, so
which they did not get.
Yeah.
We were out the first round.
Yeah, there was a mandate in the city for any kind of events, any kind of Olympic event that the city could put on or be associated with was good imaging, and good opportunity to go take photos. And, so they actually took a lot of photos. If you go into like the offices of Soldier Field right now, they got some really cool pictures of the bike race.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. And, but right now the economics of bike racing is just not. It's not.
Yeah, I love that race though because I only did one night of racing the one year, and then the following year I came back and I did another one. So did like 1 or 2 races, but it was cool because it didn't have like a huge turnout by any means, but there were good racers who came out. Like they were not easy races; they were hard, and the course was really cool. And the funny thing is, I actually still go do some riding there in that same parking lot.
Yeah.
So in the winter, for cyclocross, like fall, winter, like I'll go there because it's a safe space to do like short start sprints, like off the line. So you just need like a 10, 15 second runway, so to speak. And so I'll go to that same parking lot where you have that race, which is cool, very nostalgic for me. But it was cool because like it's basically long drags, but then you get to the corner and it's like little F1 corners.
Yeah.
And then you kind of drag back.
Yeah.
So it was all about like it was a ton of tactics, like it wasn't just like sitting in. You can't really sit in because guys would go like full on and then you come in and then it was all about like hitting the brakes really hard, nailing the turns and then sprinting out. It was hard that's harder than regular crit.
Yeah.
Like that would make today's crit look really easy.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And it was like you and Kenny LeBay and I'm like, yeah, it's a shame we couldn't get it bigger, but it was also at nighttime. Obviously, you saw the picture, so that was cool. It was under the lights.
Under the lights,
yeah.
Adam Meyerson won.
Did he?
Won.
Oh shit! I got to ask him. So, small world. So his company is the one I use for coaching.
Yeah, yeah.
Cycle Smart.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised. But
he won. He did. Yes, he did. I think he did 1. I don't know if he did 1 or 2, but he
probably used it as like a training race while he was in town doing.
It might have been
races.
Super Week or it was like around that time.
Yep.
So he's probably close by or just blowing through town. But he did win. He did win one of our.
And how long did you? How long did the series go for?
2 years.
2 years.
2 summers.
Before I forget, do you know that he won one of his biggest wins ever? I think his biggest win, if I'm not mistaken. He won a stage of the Kellogg milk race in Ireland. He won the final stage into Dublin in a sprint.
No way.
Yeah.
Dublin.
Yeah,
Really?
it's one of his
Jeez.
best wins.
Wow.
Next time I see him, I have to ask him about winning
Yeah.
that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, tons of racing going on, lots of riding going on. But Joe, what's the update on the shop, man?
As you know, I've been kind of cleaning the shop up a little bit and redoing the inside of the shop. And we're doing a lot of the work ourselves. But then the season, we thought we had a lot of runway in March, like, oh, we'll get it done in March. But the good weather hit here like early, like late February.
Yeah.
We got 60, 70 degrees. And so the season got kind of kicked off and the bikes started pouring in, and I'm short mechanics again this year, and so I'm the mechanic. That means I can't be doing, construction work. And we were doing a lot of the work ourselves because, well, in the winter, we got nothing else to do. And so we've been tied up. Like I've been tied up doing mechanical work and then trying to get this stuff done while, in spare time. But there hasn't been a lot of spare time. So I finally hired a drywaller, friend of a friend to come in and finish off a wall that we needed done. And we put a new big window in there. We're gonna I have no displays on the walls right now. Like all of my merchandise, like all of my everything except for some bikes is in storage because of the mess that we have going on there. So it's been kind of tricky, like we run over to storage to go get something for someone, oh, you want to see some bar tape? Go get them some bar tape. And we come back with a box of bar tape. And, but we have a ton of repairs in there right now and we're staying busy and we got work coming in. I'm like, boy, people are coming in. This place is a dump right now. And so, it's like, wow, wait till they see it, the way that we want it. So, yeah, we've just been busy with bike work and fixing the shop, it's been kind of all consuming. But we're turning the corner there and hopefully we'll have our, kind of the sales floor a little bit more pulled together here in the next couple of weeks.
What's the tune-up cost these days?
$99.
$99
for us, yeah. But going rate somewhere between $90 and $120 for most shops, I think. Now,
what's that include?
Well, we adjust the brakes and your derailleurs, lube your cables and true your wheels and clean your bike and headset and bottom bracket where applicable. And we don't bleed your brakes on these days on a mountain bike or a road bike, that's a different service. We do adjust them and stuff and inspect them and make sure everything is tight.
Well, a lot of times these are bikes that haven't been like completely beat up, super, super bad.
Well, it depends.
Kind of bikes that are, yeah.
It can, it depends a little bit. I actually get a lot of mountain bikes at the shop. So some of those are, come in pretty bad shape and, got a pressure washer out there.
Right. With Payless over there.
Yeah. And kind of hit them. But yeah, and then, a lot of repair parts and it's kind of normal. It's for a shop like us, it's a lot of our bread and butter is repair stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why it's,
I think that's what's keeping a lot of shops alive right now.
Small shops for sure. The big stores have to sell stuff. So that's kind of you're a really big store. You have to sell bikes.
Yeah.
You have to. You can't make enough just fixing bikes. So they have to sell bikes. That's why like a medium-sized shop, like they can't sell enough bikes. To stay in business at like kind of if you're like an odd-sized store like Cycle Smithy was, like it was getting harder and harder to run a shop like that because these big stores are popping up,
right?
These giant.
Well, then the
stores.
other thing too is like, and I hate to say it, but like I've sort of accidentally kind of taken up the beat of closing bike shops at Streets Blog too.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime a bike shop closes, I call and try and get this story. I remember talking to the owner of it's called Earth Rider Bikes on Milwaukee Avenue.
Yeah.
And she was saying that, in the last 5 years or since the pandemic or just before the pandemic, like people would come in with these mail order e-bikes and she's like, I don't know, I don't have the parts for this stuff. Like, reach out to them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that was just becoming like a whole kind of a big issue. It seemed like
it's huge right now. I mean, I have $2,000 e-bikes that are basically paperweights right now in the bike shop because the company that sold that bike 2 or 3 years ago is now out of business.
So what do you do with it?
Did
you have to pay for that?
No, it's not my bike. So it's a customer's bike. They brought it in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. It was customer.
Their wife is a really good customer. The husband bought this bike, spent $2,000 during the pandemic to get this e-bike.
Yeah. So just real quick. So like Earthrider, like they weren't selling, but people would bring in these direct to consumer bikes. Something would happen, but then she doesn't know what to do because she doesn't have the parts, and
Yeah,
anyways.
you can't get the parts. So, in some cases you can't even get them because the company's out of business, or if they are, they're unresponsive because they're really just like a warehouse.
And you're probably looking for something like a tiny part, like something proprietary.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can fix the bike portion of it, a tire, a tube, a derailleur, a chain. Like, we can do most of that.
If it's like a hub motor, most of that stuff, like whatever, like battery system.
Yeah, if it's the electronics, forget it. You know, if it's like especially like
that was
the brain unit, of that thing is like, some of those are really super proprietary. And, there's a great opportunity for somebody in the bike world to be the de facto electric bike repair place.
Yep.
I don't know any normal bike shop that wants to deal with that stuff because it's a different business.
Yeah.
It seems like the two main companies are like Bosch and then like, what is it? Baofeng, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are like the two like big e-bike motor crank set companies.
Yeah, those are probably, the Bosch you're only going to find it on nice bikes.
Oh, really nice.
Usually on like name brand bikes,
right.
But Bafang, you find it in a lot of kind of, I think that Sondors you have has a Bafang motor on it, and some of the like $3,000, I have a $3,000 Denago mountain bike in the shop right now. They got a nicer Bafang, they make nicer stuff and they make really cheap stuff. Then there's a lot of no brand electric stuff, man,
right.
So some of that's,
well, I mean, I could imagine like owning a bike shop and you have all these repairs and tune-ups, and then someone comes in with this like kind of, I hate to say it, like POS, like,
yeah, they are. They're $600 electric.
And then you're just like, you want to be nice to the customer, but you're also just like, dude, like, I don't know what to tell you.
I tell them, treat it like a lighter. I'm like, those things are like lighters.
Just like one-time use.
Yeah, you use it until it stops working, then throw it out and buy another one. I mean, that's kind of the reality of those things. You'll get, might get a year and a half or 2 years out of it, and then throw it out and buy a new one.
So, have you experienced this? She also told me this had to have been completely maddening, but right after the whole pandemic wave, it was like everyone was so worried about being low on inventory again that they went a little nuts.
Super nuts.
So she'd ordered all this inventory, but she'd get people coming into her store and they knew that she sold this brand, but then they would like kind of write it and check it out in the store, but then like order it through their phone, like direct.
Yeah, because they thought they were getting a better price.
She's like, well, I've got the bike here.
Yeah.
And if you just ask me, I'll knock the $50 off or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just like, God, that's gotta just be, I couldn't imagine like seeing that that would just make me crazy.
Yeah, they were showrooming, and that happened, it's that's partly why I'm getting rid of a lot of bikes that I used to stock in the shop. Like I'm not going to carry a lot of stuff under $1,000, if anything, like I might have a sample of it so that people can try it on or, try it out and make sure it's the bike and the size and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stock like a bunch of those bikes because people can buy them now on the website. For the most part, $700, $800 bikes and under, people are buying those directly from the bike brand because they think they're getting them cheaper.
One thing I've noticed too is like a lot of the direct to consumer bike brands really play up the idea of like the bike's 95% done. All you have to do is, and we send you the tools. But then like on Facebook Marketplace, you'll see like a public bike and the fork is on backwards.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, dude, this is a massive liability.
Go into any
here.
Walmart, the fork's on backwards.
Yeah.
There's always one bike.
Yeah,
that's what I mean is that they're like, the bike's already built. You don't have to do anything, but then people still like screw it up.
Oh, I got a bike in today. Somebody's like, ooh, I better bring it into the bike shop and have it. I tried to do it. The handlebars all wiggly. And, it's like really bad.
Oh my God. And this is something, like the handlebar slips on you and you're riding, like, I mean, knock your teeth out.
Yeah. It's not a great idea, but now they're training people to buy bikes that way. And it's just,
it has gotten a little bit better, maybe at least with some companies. But you remember I was doing that reporting on Canyon. I interviewed Joe for the story for Business Insider, which was fun. But long story short, I was just going through talking to a lot of people, and Canyon was like the big hot thing, at least for a little while. It was like because they were finally coming to the U.S.
Yeah, they seemed like they kind of came out of nowhere. There was like
kind of they were already big in Europe, but they hadn't really made it here, and they became kind of like a cachet kind of brand. Like people really wanted it because you couldn't get it. Like you had to go to Europe and like buy it and like ship it home with you. But the point of the story was, they were click to doorstep, so they had the same thing. Like all you got to do is do the last 5% or whatever. And I remember like interviewing some people, and I think maybe we talked about it, but that last 5% was actually pretty tricky for some people. Even though they supplied like the little tool, they had like a little. I still have it. It's like this. It's kind of clever. It's like a little. I think an analog torque wrench kind of thing. Like it has this little plastic dial that moves. You kind of eyeball it. It's kind of funny. Because that's for the stem, which is obviously hugely important. So I was like, man, that seems like a liability from hell issue.
Oh, yeah.
But they went through that, and I think they've gotten a lot better. Now what they do, I actually ordered a Canyon bike during the pandemic, and I returned it after a week because it just wasn't a bike for me. I realized, but it actually came in this giant, those like big ass like cardboard boxes, like really wide and like tall. They basically now put the whole fucking bike right in it. So when you get it, like it just comes out.
Yeah.
And it's like that's
both,
your bike. It's like
both wheels are, or like maybe not both.
Yeah,
but
the wheel I think it wasn't on, but like if you can't put on a wheel, then you really need some help. But like whatever. But like it was basically done.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is where we've come. Like so they have come some way, and I like to see them doing well. But yeah, I think for a lot of brands that just aren't up to spec on that, like it's tough. And I can imagine there's a bunch of people coming into shops because you even told me then, like, yeah, you get people coming in. Oh, that was the thing. So a lot of shops had like a bit of a bad taste in their mouth for Canyon because people would come in with their bikes and they'd be like, yeah, I can't like fix this. And, a shop is a shop in theory, right? So it's like, all right, we'll take it, we'll fix it. But then some of them were like, oh, we don't really want to work on your bike. Like for whatever reason, the brand had like a bad taste, and it was like bad blood.
They were one of the first. Well, as a high-end direct-to-consumer brand, and they were trying to break they were breaking the
mold,
the mold there. And there were bike shops. Those tend to be the same bike shops that didn't want to install stuff that you bought at Performance.
Yes,
right. There was always that shop. It's like, oh, we're not working.
Yeah,
we won't work on a bike that you're bringing in the parts. Nope, we don't do that.
Which is crazy.
Well, there were always that shop.
Right.
I always worked at the shop where they're like, yeah, you're going to pay us. We'll do anything you want.
That's what I'm thinking.
What do you want? Right?
It's like if you went into a car shop, I can't imagine the equivalent of that.
Yeah,
So
which I kind of love in a weird way, but it's also like it's like Tude, right? You go and it's like, oh, we're not working on that brand.
So like just like the very abridged version when you said that it wasn't the bike for you, like what's that mean?
Oh, it was. I wrote it, and it wasn't. It was kind of an almost like an entry level bike. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get back into riding, and I was going back and forth. And I didn't want to spend a lot of money, and I was kind of buying a bike as a civilian and paying full price and all this. Long story short, I wrote it, and I just realized it was like too like basic of a bike. Like the handling, which just wasn't very good. It just didn't have a good road feel. It felt, I don't want to say cheap, but like it was probably a $1,500 bike, but like it just felt kind of heavy, and like it wasn't like light and nimble and racy. And so, yeah, I was just like, I don't think this is for me. And it was heavier than I kind of thought.
Interesting.
I realized too. So I just sent it back, and I ended up getting like, I think I got that Domane eventually, but
so those
anyway.
So those like the really cheap, the direct to consumer bikes like Public or Linus or State or whatever, some of these brands.
Yeah.
So I read I get the Rivendell newsletter, and Grant Peterson's blog is also in those. And I always read his blog because he's an interesting guy. I mean, like, you can say that he's whatever, kind of weird or out of touch, and those things are all probably true. But his opinions are always interesting. And I found an old like Q&A with him where someone's like, what do you think about these direct to consumer bikes? And they're only $200-$300. Like they've got to be complete crap. Like I bet you just hate them. He was like, no, actually, like I like those bikes are better than carbon road bikes.
Yeah,
He's like, I like that they have upright handlebars on them.
You can see the cables and
He's
all.
like, actually, I like those bikes. I was like, wow, okay,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know. So
I always remember when we had Ultra Romance on the show. Like one of the things I remember him saying was, like he would never ever, and he made a point. He's like, I mean, never. I will never ride a mass-produced bicycle. Like period. Like I won't ride one. He's like, I'll walk. Remember?
I'll walk,
he was like, I will not ride.
not even an old Miata.
Apparently not. I mean, maybe for old school stuff.
Yeah, maybe an old one. Yeah. I think he was referring more to like the newer,
newer stuff,
specialized stuff, and the Trek stuff. Yeah.
By the way, do you read Bike Snob? Do you get his
I
newsletter?
did years ago, but not anymore.
So
does he still do his blog?
he has a daily. I get the newsletter version. I think that's how a lot of people read him now.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of switched platforms a little bit, but I still read him, and it's very photo driven. So he has a lot of. But he works. I think he's sponsored by or has some deal with whatever it is, with some company, and I forget their name, something classic bicycles or something. But basically, they send you like old bikes to
Corsa Classic,
maybe. But you like can ride these old bikes, and then you just ride them for like you rent them.
Oh, interesting.
So you rent them for like whatever period of time, but like cool old road bikes, and so yeah, and like old cyclocross bikes, like steel bikes, like the bikes we kind of talk a lot about. And he'll ride them, and he just makes his funny color commentary about them, and goes into like weird esoteric kind of parts. But it's still a good read. I think
one of my favorite,
very funny.
One of my favorites is there's a subreddit called Which Bike, and it's people who are like, which bike should I get, or like, I found this bike on Facebook. The seller's asking this much. What should I do? And every week there's always someone like, here's like an 80s like Colnago, just total blinged out Italian, like full campy Colnago. And they're like, the seller's asking 700. That seems like a lot because it's, rim brakes and 8-speed or whatever. And it's funny because there's always comments like, yeah, that's complete junk. It doesn't have disc brakes, blah, 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 blah. Like not realizing this stuff is like the super bikes of its day.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just find that so funny that some people, well, they just don't know. They just don't know.
They don't know.
They just don't know.
They don't know. There are a lot of, that stuff is now old enough where there is a whole group of people out there that, adults who didn't really brush up against it. They don't know about that stuff.
And then it's funny because then there's other people like me where I'm like, that frame is worth $700 at least.
Yeah.
Well,
that's because you're old.
That's because I'm old. Yeah. Older. Almost.
You're older.
Almost.
Yeah. It's funny because I have kids at the shop. I call them kids, but they're 27, 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, they don't know about any of this stuff, right? They weren't even born when that stuff was new.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's really.
Well, then like the flip side is like, then there will be someone who posts like a bike they saw on Facebook where it's like an old Schwinn with like $500 worth of like Velo Orange parts.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, the seller's selling it for only $700. Like he's got $1,000 worth of parts on it. And people are like, yeah, but that's still it's just still an old Schwinn. Come on, man. Like,
wow.
You know
what? You just made me do the math. My old racing bike my old Eddie Merckx is hanging in the bike shop.
Yeah.
That bike is older. That bike is older than my oldest employee.
Wow.
Except for, Earl, not counting Earl.
Not counting Earl.
But the bike itself is older than my oldest employee.
Yeah.
And significantly older than most of the employees at the shop. So it's you're just like, okay.
from like and then not to hog it, but just kind of final thing about Logan Square. It's like, I was covering real estate in Logan Square 10 years ago, and I've started kind of going to some of these meetups and stuff for like the YIMBY thing, I guess, in my backyard and kind of like more pro housing. And it's interesting how younger people, like in their early to mid 20s, are so supportive of like housing now, like all kinds of housing, affordable, market rate, whatever. And yeah, they just, like there were some like epic NIMBY wars. And I'm just like, of course it seemed like yesterday, but they have no idea. They just like weren't here.
Yeah.
So
these kids, man, I tell you.
These kids.
Yeah, we're getting old. We're just getting old. That's all right.
So I need a quick follow-up, Joe, on you had some plans for possible bike packing. I'm trying to hold you to it. So what's going on with that? I know you've been busy.
We are still collecting, emails and phone numbers, and so there's a growing list at the shop.
Okay,
and we're still meeting people, and today somebody was in the shop and we're talking about it. So, it's looking like Starved Rock probably is going to be the destination, just because it makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah.
And it's something that we could probably pull off pretty easily.
So would you ride there one day, camp in a tent, and then ride home the next day?
That's probably
with the support vehicle.
Yeah, that's probably the.
What's
plan.
that? 80 miles each way?
Yeah, 85 technically.
It's pretty much
86.
Pretty much flat the whole way, right?
It is. It's the distance that will get most of the people are probably just affected by the distance.
Right.
It's the second day that has me concerned for a lot of those people, because
sore butts.
Yeah, one thing is to go one way, the other thing is to come back.
Yes.
So that's kind of that's the discussion. It's like, maybe we split it up. Maybe we go halfway and then we ride. Maybe we go 40 miles
or do multimodal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So I've got some other news for you guys. Starting February 1st, bikes are allowed on all Metro trains.
Oh, wow.
So that policy just went into effect in February.
Oh,
really?
That's news.
And so the train that Danny and I were on, where the whole lower level was bike racks, that was the first, they call it Bike Car 1.0. So it was like their first like rendition of like a bike car. And so now they've they've got a couple different variants they've done. And so it seems like they've like figured out what they like and what works. And anyway, so that could be an option too.
So any Metro train, any Metro car?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, any Metro train.
Any Metro train.
Yes.
It's going to have a bike car.
There will be so they're trying to get up to 50. Right now I think there's like 40 or 45 in service. But bikes are allowed on all trains.
Not just on the weekends, but during the week as well.
Any train.
That's
train.
That's really pretty big.
And so right now, as we stand, like you can go with a bike and put it on the train somewhere.
That's correct.
Wow.
And so maybe, it might be worth trying to understand or talk to Metro and say, hey, like when do you get like the big bike car? Because then if you get a group and everyone's tired, then you could figure out like where to catch the actual like the big bike train car. But I don't know if they're going to be using the one that we rode. I don't know if that one's going to be in service.
I think it might have been a special edition.
Yeah.
Do you know of any Metro that goes anywhere even close in the direction of Starved Rock? Like I know there's no train down to Starved Rock, right?
I know the one that goes along that Heritage Corridor.
That's the one we took.
It only goes up to Joliet, right? Doesn't it stop in Joliet?
I think it's Joliet.
Yeah.
So, I'd have to look at it. It's not something that I have really dug deep into, and I should probably understand that a little bit more if this is going to become a thing. So,
because the train would be better than trying to get like a van or something, like a support van.
I mean, it depends, probably the numbers will dictate like how many people sign up.
Yeah, there's talk about people wanting to go down and meet us and like hang out. Like some people don't want to ride, but these people that do ride have friends and they're just like, oh, we can go down and meet you. And, but I think part of the purpose of it is just for people to try out their camping stuff, like learn how to use all this gear that they have. It's like, you got the coffee maker, you've got the little stove, you got the titanium fork and spoon, and and these people are like playing with it at home and stuff, but it's a whole different thing to put it on your bike and then make coffee trailside and warm up water and do the little propane, the
Bunsen burner,
the little thing where they're using like people are using alcohol or they're using like gas or whatever it is that they're using, and
warming up their beans.
Yeah, they have like $1,000 worth of gear.
Whoa!
Well, that stuff is really expensive.
It is. It adds up too.
It's really. I mean, it's easy
Those
to have
bags and panniers and.
It's easy to have $1,000 worth of stuff. No time.
Yeah.
You buy a couple of Ortley bags, you're already.
I feel like that's great stuff to buy secondhand if you can, because I feel like a lot of people buy it and then they end up not using it much. Like I feel like that's one of those categories.
Well, this is that nonprofit I mentioned one time that's doing exactly what you described.
Oh yeah, you mentioned them.
And they just had a fundraiser this past week. I guess like they're getting fairly. I mean,
Out our front
but it
door,
seems
is
like
that it?
it seems like they're getting bigger and
Is it a Chicago-based organization or?
yeah.
Oh, okay. That'd be cool to team up with them. I mean, we're always down to meet some.
And I think they've expanded their charter where they're like an actual like nonprofit now.
Really?
And they do education instead of just.
Interesting.
I think it initially started off as just like, hey, let's go bike camping here and there, And like you said, there's so much interest in it now that it seems like there's opportunities to do more.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's big, and I think it's one of those things where the bike industry is just kind of missing the boat.
Yeah.
Because there's I think that there's a lot of opportunity there for growth.
Some companies are really on it though.
Yeah, Salsa has always been on it. Surly's been kind of on it, but those are
like
kind of alt companies, right? Those are,
that's true. I'm thinking of like Crust, but those are that's like really expensive stuff.
Yeah, and also niche-y, right? So those are all we just those three brands. Even as big as Surly is, it's still a niche brand compared to your the big guys in the industry. Your Specialized, your Trek, your Giant. Those guys are still pushing bike racing and. They have so much money and so much sway, in the magazines and all.
And even their like commuter / touring stuff's not even that good. Like I remember, I was looking for a handlebar bag, and Specialized makes this handlebar bag with how do you pronounce it? Fall Raven, like the Swedish
the jacket. Their jacket.
It was like $150 handlebar bag, and it looked like
a collab.
It looked like a.
Like you wouldn't take
it looked like a lunchbox. It was like some like little cheapy. I'm like, man,
it's style.
Very expensive
style
for what it was.
Substance. Yeah.
Those collabs sometimes, I know, they're a little cringy. Like you see the product, you're like, I don't know.
Well, then the other thing too is like after 6 months they don't sell them, then it's like huge discount. It's like on closeout.
Yeah, so. I will say, not to defend Specialized, I do have some Specialized stuff. I like them, but not everything they make is great. I remember
some stuff's awesome.
I remember, some other stuff's great. Like I remember Ultra Romance Selling. Remember his collab?
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting. But I will say, like, one of the best pairs of bib shorts I've ever had, and jersey and vest. It was all one. It was high vis stuff. Still have it. The shorts are pretty worn at this point, so I don't really wear them. But I'll wear them basically over tights and like foul weather if I need them. But
their racing stuff is good.
Yeah, but like
their shoes are awesome.
No, the shoes, So that kit it's maybe the best kit I've ever owned in terms of just like comfort, fit, look. And I'm comparing it to like nice stuff like Rafa.
I mean, they're R&D
so
they're focused on that high end, on that racing stuff, and it's always been, a lot of that stuff was like Italian made. Cannondale did the same thing. Like a lot of their stuff was being made in the same factories that Santini and some of the other brands were.
But you're talking about more just like everyday kind of
some of the like kind of commuter type stuff, It's like,
I mean, that commuter, especially commuter used to have its own, that was its own world. I mean, in Chicago, we had Rapid Transit, which was the commuter shop. I mean, that's how niche it was. There was only one bike shop that really focused on commuters, commuters and recumbents. that was like kind of what they became famous for a long time, and then they just became kind of a bike shop, like they broadened out there.
Does Earl still ride his recumbent?
No, I don't think he's ridden indoors. I think he's on a trainer.
I've never seen him in person, but I've seen photos of him
riding a recumbent. Yeah, he used to come by and whip around in that thing, and he had like a full sock fairing thing.
Yeah, he had like the American flag,
custom made. Yeah, I mean, he spent a lot of money on recumbents and accessories.
Easy Rider, right?
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. I think Jax is about to throw up.
No, that's he has. I forget what it is, but he has a little bit of a. I think it's like a congestion thing.
Oh, okay.
We talked to the vet about it. He's fine. He just does that every once in a while.
Jax is
our cat in the background with a little voice color.
Yep.
Thanks, buddy. It always does seem like he's about to upchuck, and you're
he's a good mascot for your show.
Oh, he's great. But thanks for coming up, guys.
Oh yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for hosting us.
Yeah.
AJ, good to see you, man.
Likewise.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Been a while.
We should do this more often.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's always fun hanging out with you,
Absolutely.
man. Got to get you riding again.
Yeah, and we'll have to do a
tomorrow's gonna be like almost 80.
Yeah.
Do a backyard show.
Are you
Ooh.
are you riding? Are you riding a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. Just cruising around the hood, the neighborhood, and you know,
Anywhere.
We got to get you on.
He rode here tonight.
You got to get you on those long rides that you were.
fixing up some other bikes, and yeah, I want to get, you know, I want to do some like light, not crazy touring.
Easy rides.
Get back
It's
into
all
it.
about slow rides.
Because I'm going to be on the
slow
same.
ride.
I'm the same level of fitness right now
Take it
as your customers who are just regular people who
That's
are
the way-
probably
yeah.
aren't, you know what I mean?
Normal humans.
Yeah.
My
yeah.
fitness is like very much normal dad.
It's a work in progress.
You know, that's the whole thing now. You just a lot of easy rides and you become fit.
Yeah.
right?
That's what Pogacar does.
yeah.
He just rides slow, zone 2.
a lot of easy rides, man. Just
Or-
a lot of easy
right.
rides.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
they all build. They all build.
That's
into
like the new thing is like just ride chill and be like a Tour de France winner.
Yep.
But you're saying that was the old Italian way, right?
Yeah, well,
Smoke cigarettes.
I was
go for
joking
rides.
earlier about the old Italians.
LSD, man. Long.
hang up your
slow
bike.
distance.
In October, don't touch it till New Year's. Like all kinds of crazy.
Ride the fat off. That's what
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just ride the fat. Ride yourself into shape.
You can like smoke and drink, but yeah, no, this is fun, guys. All right, we'll do it again soon.
All right.
Rock and roll.
Everybody.
Rock and roll.